All right. So let's get into our topic for today. Before we even start talking about financial infidelity, we should talk about, at least give a definition of what it means. And it's so interesting, that question that you had earlier, is that we really do settle down with people who complement us financially. So a spendthrift really is more likely to marry somebody who's more financially conservative. It just happens that way. And when it happens that way, financial issues are the most frequent source of conflict. And financial conflict sometimes, when I talk to a lot of couples about having this financial conflict, I say, okay, great. This is wonderful. This is a perfect opportunity for us to sit down and establish rules. You had this sort of conflict when it came to finances because the two of you weren't able to have these discussions up front. You weren't able to make a lot of these expectations explicit. So in marriage and in committed relationships, we have expectations about how we think things should be, and particularly with our money and finances and how we spend and rules for spending. And so problems come up because you have it in your head about what you think it should be, and your partner has it in their head about what they think it could be, and it ends up playing out. Our behaviors end up conflicting, and you have different points of view and different perspectives. When I see this happen, I get excited because I'm like, great, conflict to a marriage therapist. Conflict means bravo. We now have an opportunity to become closer and to develop our intimacy in a way where we are on the other side of conflict. We know each other better. We're able to relate to each other better. And we're able to have openness and transparency. Which leads us to financial infidelity, because when you have rules that you've established and you've said, listen, this is an issue. What are we going to do with our money? How are we going to plan together? And you come up with a plan and you expect your partner to follow through with what they said they were going to do. And then on the other end of that, you're learning that your partner did not come through for you like you thought she would. So that leads to all different types of infidelity. By the way, there's three main types of infidelity. There's financial infidelity, there's emotional infidelity, and of course there's sexual infidelity, right? And a lot of them, the three of them kind of go together, right? Financial infidelity is just one piece of the emotional and sexual infidelity for some cases, not for all, but for some people, right? However, financial infidelity for a lot of couples, it is almost like the straw. It is more difficult to rebound from financial infidelity than it does to emotional infidelity and sexual infidelity. It's more difficult for couples to rebound because it's like emotional infidelity and the other types of having other relationships on the side. That is indicative of the relationship. But when you talk about finances and you're being deceitful and secretive and all of that when it comes to finances, that affects the entire household. So we're having an extramarital affair really deals with the marriage itself. Financial infidelity deals with the entire household and how the household operates. So if you can kind of understand that, financial infidelity is really more difficult to bounce back from. So what's the definition? So the I like this definition from the National Endowment for Financial Education. They define financial infidelity as a general admission to committing financial deception against a committed partner. And it is similar to, just straight up cheating, because what it does is it creates distance in the relationship. So anytime someone is doing something behind their back and you're not being upfront, you're not being transparent, it creates distance in the relationship. And so that's what happens. And there's two main components. One component is just engaging in financial behavior and you think that your partner is not going to like it. You don't know whether your partner's going to like it or not. There's just a perception. Okay, I'm going to buy this and I know my husband's not going to like it. Or I'm going to do this, give this money away, and I know my wife is not going to like it. So that's part of the first component of financial infidelity. A second component is that not only do you do this behavior that you have agreed upon that you wouldn't do, and you feel like it would be, the other person would disapprove of it, but there's a second part to that. It's you don't even disclose it, right? You don't come to your partner and you fail intentionally, say, I don't want to disclose anything that's happening. And so that's the two components of financial infidelity. It's engaging in the behavior that you perceive that your partner would not like, and then subsequent concealment. And this is really important that those two components are in there because, let's just face it, like birthday times, holidays, we just had a Valentine's Day. Sometimes you're spending money and your partner doesn't know it, right? But you're spending money because you're buying them something. You're planning a special event or you're planning something special for your partner and you're concealing a purchase, but you're doing it because it's a surprise. So it's important to have these two components in there because a surprise is something that should be like a joyous surprise. A surprise shouldn't be anything disappointing where you're breaking the trust in the relationship, and it causes emotional distress for the hurt partner. And it also, for a lot of perpetrators, or I'm going to say perpetrators of financial infidelity, it also takes a toll on them too, because they have to remember this lie. They have to keep the lie going. And so sometimes it can also be hurtful for the person who's committing the financial infidelity or infidelity just in general, but it's extremely distressful for the person on the receiving end. And that's basically what financial infidelity is on a nutshell. It undermines the trust and it undermines the commitment in the relationship. And, I think it's important to have open and honest conversations about financial decisions. And when there's a lot of disagreements and you want to, is Dr. Boyce here? Hey, Boyce, I'm distracted by his hearts. Anyway, he's in the room. Anyway, okay. So, you're people who are very sensitive to disagreements about money, and they just don't want to talk about it. They just want to avoid it. And we'll go into that. I just wanting to avoid, having to have potential conflict. So, financial infidelity, what is it? So I like for you all here to take a quiz, because in this class we have self-assessments. I like for you all to go through all of these different aspects of financial infidelity and be honest with yourself. If you are in a relationship, you may want to just take this as an opportunity to be able to say, yeah, I did this. So I would like for you, there's a list of things here on the screen that talks about different behaviors that could be considered as financial infidelity. So if you've ever done any of these things, please be sure to just give yourself a tally. I'm going to take the quiz too. So, okay. Have you ever pretended to a new purchase was an old purchase? So have you ever had a partner that came to you and said, wow, is that another new outfit you got? And you're like, no, I've had this for a long time. I just pulled it out of the closet. If that ever happened to you, give yourself a little tag, a hash mark right there. Okay. So have you ever said you bought something on sale, but you didn't? You paid full price. Have you ever lied like that? Give yourself a point. Some people are guilty. Okay. Have you ever hid purchases or receipts? Like when the Amazon box comes, that Amazon truck stops at our house quite often. So if the Amazon truck comes and it's dropping off packages and you're like, uh-oh, let me hurry up. Let me see when it comes. Let me hurry up and grab these packages and hide packages and purchases. Give yourself another point. Okay, have you ever taken money out of your savings without telling your partner? Oh my goodness. Have you ever hid credit card statements? Have you ever said, I don't want them to be able to see anything here? Have you ever hid credit card statements? Have you ever opened a credit card without telling your partner? Oh my goodness. How could you do that? Okay. Some people do it. Have you ever kept a secret account? And it's really interesting because this part is really debatable. I've seen many discussions about having a secret account. And I think that's really fascinating. And I have a lot of ideas about that in terms of trust. But I don't know, like if you're married, having a secret account, you think that's just your money. It's not. Any money that's made in a legal marriage. By the way, you all know that legally in a marriage, what your partner makes and what you make, it's y'all money together, like legally. And if you ever wanted to dissolve your marriage, the courts and lawyers, they don't care about a judge or whatever. They don't care about how much money you made or how much money your partner made. They just want to know how much the household made, and they will distribute that accordingly. So don't think that you could hide something secret and then it just belongs to you. It doesn't. It belongs to both people. So hiding, and I think you need to have a conversation about why you feel the need to hide. Why do you need to have a secret account that's hidden from your partner? What is up with that? Like having a conversation with that is important. But if that ever happens, let us know. Have you ever lied about the amount of debt you have? There's so much shame around debt. People feel shame because it indicates, like, for many of us, there's debt that's understandable. Student loan debt, that's understandable. Buying a house, that's understandable. Buying a car is understandable. But making poor decisions and you like racked up on all this credit card debt and you've gone into bankruptcy and you've made like really awful decisions, sometimes like that level of debt is a lot of shame attached to that. So you don't want to talk about it because you just feel kind of like, I feel stupid. You just feel stupid for agreeing to do something that you shouldn't have done, and now you got to share it with someone else. Like, it was painful enough that you already went through this in your past. Now you got to share it to your partner, and you want to show your partner that you've made good decisions. You put your best foot forward, and you haven't. You're like, I was really kind of silly in the past. So it's really difficult to kind of disclose that. So if you've ever done that, give yourself a point. Okay. Oh, keeping a raise or bonus secret. So you get a raise at your job and you don't even want to tell your partner about it. Like, that's a wonderful thing. That says you're being recognized for some awful things, for some wonderful things in your life. You're being recognized because a raise is usually tied to, for many of us, it's tied to performance. For many of us, getting a raise and getting a bonus is tied to something that should be celebrated. I got this raise. I mean, how so some people keep that from their partner because they want to spend that money on something else. And I think that really speaks to a lot of other issues in the relationship. And I don't know, like getting a raise, it's not like you did the work on your own. In a household, there's interdependency in households. And that's, you depend on me, I depend on you, is interdependent. And so when one person is succeeding, it's because the whole household is working together to make sure that person succeeds. So that should be something that should be celebrated. And for some people, you kind of have some thinking about keeping your raise or bonus a secret. Okay, the next one is spending money on other people without telling. So you can spend money on the kids, you can spend money in a whole bunch of different ways, but you hide that. If you've ever done that, give yourself a point. Gambling addictions. Oh my goodness. Gambling addictions without telling your partner. Spending money, going to the horse. I had an uncle that went to the horse race all the time, but he wasn't married, thank goodness. But he would spend a lot of money betting on horses and or just gambling in general at the casino. You're gambling. You didn't tell. So that's the thing. Like, it's okay to gamble, but you're not even telling anybody. Okay, spending money on porn or strip clubs without telling. That's a behavior to kind of talk about what's going on there. That you're spending money on porn. There's so much free porn. I don't know. Not that I know there's free porn, but my understanding is that there's so much free porn out there. I don't know. I guess some people just feel like they just have to do it in a secret way. Spend money in that way. And then the last one, and I know there's other examples, but the last one is, have you ever filed for bankruptcy without letting your partner know? I don't know how that's even possible, that you can just be so overwhelmed with debt that you just file for bankruptcy and you don't let your partner know. But I guess it definitely, all of these behaviors could happen. Even taxes, like, think about people who pay their taxes. They don't tell their partner about their tax debt. They don't pay, especially if, because if you file married, but file separate, like, I don't scrutinize my husband's taxes. I just have to just trust and know that he's taking care of his taxes. He knows I'm taking care of my taxes, although it could affect us, it could affect your household in many different ways. So there were, how many of these? There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 behaviors. Whoa. Add them up. And I think, the more you have, the closer you are to 13, you really need to have some conversations. If you've ever done this in the past. And by the way, I just want to say, different relationships have different dynamics. You could be thinking about a bunch of different relationships where you've done some of these behaviors, but there are some relationships where you feel like, oh, I haven't done any of these behaviors. So I am Prissy said just 3 out of 13. Was it with the same partner? Because I really do think that maybe you keep a secret account with this relationship. All right. So, there's different reasons. You're different in every relationship, but this is just an assessment just to see, if you've engaged in any of these things. And I'd like for you, even if you have answered yes to any of these things, in the moment when you were engaged in these behaviors, like, what were you thinking and how were you feeling? What were you telling yourself during these times? So a package came from Amazon and you were racing to the door to get it before your spouse saw it. Like, what was going through your mind? What kind of conversations do you think you were avoiding by hiding, a purchase, or hiding things on your credit card, or having to lie to cover up debt, having to keep a secret account? What was the thinking about? And what conversations should you have had with your partner that you did not have because of that? Like, I think any of these behaviors on any different level, and it's up to you guys to really, digest it and think about it. Any of these behaviors immediately creates distance between you and your partner. Anytime you need to hide, anytime you need to lie, anytime you need to participate in things, gamble, anytime you need to do any of these things and you don't feel comfortable sharing that with the person who is your next of kin, I think that is indicative of a serious problem in your relationship. And you should think about why. Why am I not able to have these conversations? And what am I afraid of in these conversations? Have I just felt like I have tried to have these conversations in the past and it was painful, and I was afraid that the person wouldn't like me anymore, wouldn't accept me anymore, wouldn't love me anymore. A lot of these behaviors come out of fear, I think, and it doesn't come from a place that it should come from. Everything you do in your relationship should come from love. And I think, let the chips fall where they may. You know what? I did this. And maybe I have a problem. We live one life. So I don't know if you want to live your life managing relationships in this way where it's just not conducive to real closeness. So that's just something to think about. Like, the hiding a credit card statement, what that does to you, and how that strips away your connection, because on some level your partner knows. How about that? On some level, when you lie, when you hide, when you cover up, the people you do business with, the people that you are in a relationship with, the people that you interact with, on some level, they know, because you're putting it out there. You think you're hiding, you think you're getting away with something, but you're really not. I think you should think about that. But anyway, that's the self-assessment. So I think we should talk about how many other people fall into this category. Believe it or not, there's a lot of people who have financial infidelity. The prevalence rate, we should talk about this. It's hard to, because it's financial infidelity, it's very difficult to give a rate. But different people have different sort of categories. There was one study I read that said 13% of relationships, there's some encounter of financial infidelity. I don't think it's that low. But another study I read today said 22%. But what we do know is that the National Endowment for Financial Education, I'll go with their rate. They said it's more like 41%. That's almost half. Half of relationships have some sort of financial infidelity that's happening. Oh my goodness, that's a lot. So that's what they're estimating. It's also intergenerational or generational, because I read another article that said millennials, y'all millennials out there, 50% of millennials have indicated some level of financial infidelity. 41% of Generation Xers, that's me, I'm Generation X, has financial infidelity. 33% of baby boomers report committing financial infidelity. So, that's something to keep in mind. I guess baby boomers, it was probably just way more difficult for baby boomers to do it back then. But definitely more, it's so much easier to hide things nowadays than it is because of social media and everything is digital. It's so much easier just to cheat in general. It's just easy to do. Anyway, but the National Endowment for Financial Education, they did another study and they reported that 76% of the people who committed financial infidelity said that it significantly harmed their relationship. Like their partner found out about it and it was of significant harm. 10% of divorces in their study 10% of the people who committed financial infidelity said that it eventually led to a divorce. And 35% who committed financial infidelity said that their finances, they felt their finances should remain private and that it's off limits for their spouse to even know what's going on with them financially. Like 35% of the people who committed financial infidelity said they did so because it ain't none of their business. It's not my wife's, not my husband's business what I'm doing with my money, and my money should be private and my money should be off limits. It's my money, I made the money, and I should be able to spend it on whomever and whatever I want. So that sort of attitude is there, and I don't know how that can, unless their partner is on board with that. I'm not sure how that's going to play out in relationships. I do think that if you do have that belief, you need to have explicit conversations with your partner about that. Definitely, what some other studies talked about is that it is the couples ranked financial issues as the third frequent source of conflict in their marriage. And it's frequently the reason for divorce. It's like there's a lot of conversation about who's more likely to commit financial infidelity and who's not. They were saying that people who commit financial infidelity just aren't happy in their relationship. They have low self-esteem. And I'm not certain if low self-esteem happened before financial infidelity, or if low self-esteem happened because they were financially cheating. They were cheating financially if it came as a result of or as a cause of financial infidelity. And financial infidelity was also related to people who were just like, I'm not committed to this relationship. And that makes sense, right? Because I see that with a lot of my couples. A lot of the couples that I work with, they don't want to talk about finances because they don't even know if they want to be with this person anymore. So they do tend to hide money. Like if you think the relationship is over, you're more likely to kind of like hide money. They're like, you know what? I need to plan an exit plan in this relationship. So I got to take my money and I got to put it somewhere else. So I think it is related to commitment. So you're not really that committed. You're not happy in the marriage and you're not feeling good about yourself. Those are the people who are more prone to committing financial infidelity. They don't like you. They don't want to be with you and they don't feel good about this relationship. Makes sense, right? Another aspect with financial infidelity is that it's no gender indicator. So men aren't more prone to committing financial infidelity than women. I thought maybe financial infidelity. I'm like, definitely a man's thing. No, it is not a man's thing. Men and women, they have an equal likelihood of committing financial infidelity. It has nothing to do with anything, but it does have to do with the length of the relationship. And I thought that was really interesting that like the longer you're with somebody, the less likely you are to commit financial infidelity. And I think also in a lot of these studies, the longer you're with somebody, the more likely you are to forgive someone who has committed financial infidelity if they're still, interested in continuing the relationship and want to rededicate themselves to each other. So the length of the relationship, believe it or not, popped up as something really, really significant. Let's see. Anything else about that I wanted to share? So I've read a bunch of articles today about financial infidelity. I knew a lot about financial infidelity before reading articles, but I was real curious about like synthesizing everything and making sure I understood what was going on. So there were 3 strongest indicators. So we did talk about who's more prone to financial infidelity, but there are 3 that consistently came out in the research. I'm putting this together. They consistently came out in the research. A lot of this is based on my clinical experience and what I've seen in my personal life, what I've seen, the dynamics in relationships. There were 3 strongest indicators of financial infidelity, and it makes sense that it would be these 3. So the first one is relationship satisfaction, which makes sense, right? You're not satisfied, which has an impact on the commitment levels, and you're just ready to make your exit plan and you got to hide your money away. That makes sense, right? But the second one was conscientiousness. And I think it's really interesting. Maybe I should do a lecture on the different types of personality styles. There's a bunch of different personality styles, and you can take one of those assessments. I think there's one online that you can take about assessments. But of all the different personality styles, conscientiousness, your level of conscientiousness came up in a lot of the studies that I read as a strong link to financial infidelity. And I don't know I can go into it a little later, but conscientiousness is basically part of your personality. There's certain people, their personality is they like to be organized. They're conscious. They like to be conscientious about everything that they do. They like to be very organized in their surroundings. They are very dependable people. So people who are conscientious, don't be late to a meeting with them or they'll get really mad at you. People who are very conscientious also tend to expect people to follow through what they say they were going to do, right? So this makes sense. So people who scored really high on this personality scale for conscientiousness, they weren't committing financial infidelity. They were like, no, I'm not keeping any of my financial decisions secret. I am dependable and I am reliable. Dependable, reliable people have scored really high on this conscientiousness aspect of a personality. So if you want to know who to get into a relationship with, say, ooh, why don't you take this test and see how they score on conscientiousness, and then you can kind of evaluate, ooh, this is a red flag, you're low on conscientiousness. Y'all, you're gonna cheat on me one day. And this consistently comes up as an indicator. Anyway, so and it's really interesting because people who are very conscientious, they just tend to have healthy relationships. Like they're not taking BS from anybody. Like, I'm conscientious, I'm dependable, I'm organized, I'm gonna be there when you tell me to be there. I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna say what I mean, and I'm gonna mean what I say. People like that have healthy relationships and are very satisfied with themselves and satisfied with life, because if you ain't with them on conscientiousness, they're done with you, right? So they tend to weed out. They don't like people who are inconsistent and people who don't follow through what they say. And that makes sense, because it should translate into how they're going to be in a relationship with you, and whether they're going to be open and honest with you, or they're going to be straightforward with you and transparent. So that makes sense. I do want to talk about avoidant attachment. So believe it or not, this is something that came up. By the way, if you're in the Dr. Boyce Prime program, there's 2 weeks that we talked about attachment styles and finances. Go and look at those videos, because I go into all the different attachment styles. I'm not going to cover it today, but one attachment style that completely sticks out in terms of financial infidelity for many of us are people who are avoidant in their attachment. And sometimes they just they tend to respond in a way to say you're making a big deal out of nothing. Sometimes they make important decisions in their life, but they just don't want to make it with their partner. So part of it is that their financial approach to the world is very analytical and logical, but they're avoidant, so they don't tend to share likely. So these are people who just like, you know what, I prefer working alone on things, and I don't want to be bogged down with a whole bunch of details, but I want to work alone. And a lot of times they just don't share information with you, and then you find out things on the back end, and you're like, I can't understand why would you not share this information with me about purchases? And sometimes they just like, I didn't even think to share it with you. I felt like it was none of your business, so they can be a little dismissive in their conversation with you. So people who are, have this avoidant sort of orientation can tend to be like that. And they're just like that in every aspect. But I just wanted to highlight that about avoidant. So my last slide here that I'm going to talk about, and is some recommendations. And after I talk about recommendations, then I'll open it up to questions. Anybody has questions? I think it's so important to just talk about it. Here's what happens. If you have a conversation with your partner and you come up with expectations, right? Expectations. Included in that, you should have a conversation with your partner about financial expectations. And if you find that there's issues happening, they're making decisions and they're not telling you, or they're hiding, or they feel the need to hide anything from you financially and otherwise, that tells you that you're not aligned. It's a signal that you're misaligned in some way. Like maybe there's a core values. Maybe your core values just aren't syncing up. It's a signal that there's an issue and that there's further conversations that you need to have that you're not having, right? So recommendation is to just recognize, okay, we're not aligned in this way. We need to try to figure this out together. And part of that is to get some insights into your partner so that you know your partner better, but it's also to make a decision if you can live with this for the rest of your life. Can I live with this for the rest of my life, or can I not? Right? So that's one thing that that's important. Another thing is to look at yourself. Really look at yourself. Like, recognize that when there's any sort of financial conflict and or hurt feelings around financial infidelity or any type of conflict, recognize your role in that. Because yeah, you're a victim and you're a hurt person, but it's also signals that there's some other relationship issues going on that led to this infidelity, right? And you had to have played a part in that. So I think part of it is just knowing and understanding that, you know, you are you are part of this relationship. So you have to be part of the solution and you have to be part of the issues that are going on, right? Another recommendation I would have for everyone is have an agreed upon financial sort of plan. Like, I do think that you don't need to consult with your partner about everything that you buy, right? I think you should say, you know what, if you spend anything more than $1,000, you're going to have to talk to me. Like, let me know and talk to me, right? Give each other like a dollar amount. Say, if it's under $100, I don't care what it is, go for it. But if you're spending over a certain amount of money, $500 or $1,000, whatever it is, you two need to decide on that. Just say, look, you don't need to tell me everything. You don't really want to know everything. If it's a couple of $100 here and there, I don't really care. Or, you know, that type of conversation. So just have like agreed upon plan, right? There's discretionary income that I don't even really care. Take part of your salary and income and put it into the joint checking account. And then you have your own personal checking account. You can put whatever money in your own personal checking account. I don't really care what you do with it. You can blow it at the casino all you want. I don't even want to know about it. I don't want to hear about it. It's not affecting our household. I think that's so important to have that kind of conversation. And so something agreed upon. And I really do think working on the overall relationship is just important in general. Like financial hiccups and financial plans and stuff, it really says there's something happening in the overall relationship. And nothing's ever going to be perfect, right? You're always going to have some sort of conflict, but you need to have a plan on how we're going to solve this inevitable conflict. You're always going to come from a different point of view. And financially, I think it's important to be proactive, right? You should have a plan with your partner. Let's sit down every month and let's go over our budget. Let's have a balance sheet. You can have a balance sheet in your relationship. Let's regularly communicate about finances and spending. What's interesting is that when couples are able to do this, have a financial plan, have a conversation about creating a budget, having a balance sheet, having regular conversations about money and finances and spending, those couples are less likely to have financial infidelity. Like your probability of financial infidelity drops to almost zero when you're having regular conversations about money. Makes sense, right? You're on the same page. You feel connected to each other. Nothing makes you feel strongly bonded to the relationship and committed to each other when you sit down and say, we're going to put our money together and we're going to do this with it. And we got goals and all of that. Like that's a beautiful part of a relationship. And if you aren't able to do that financially, what's the point? You're planning to build something together. That's the pinnacle of just the whole idea of the family unit and the household unit is to build each other up and to have each other's back. And part of that is going to be building our bank accounts, having each other's back financially. And that helps the overall relationship. Okay, so get your questions ready. I'm going to answer your questions. I'm going to say goodbye to Instagram. And then I'll answer any of your questions here. So be sure to put it in the Q&A or you can put it in the chat or whatever you want. I'm going to say goodbye. Instagram, goodbye. Thanks for tuning in.